The bird's wings shook as it landed before the mighty prophet Suleiman. Thousands of soldiers, humans, jinn, and animals stood in perfect silence watching. The sun was bright, but the air felt heavy. The little bird, the famous Hudhud, lowered its head and said in a trembling voice, "O prophet of Allah, I bring news of a nation who bows to the sun instead of the one true God." The entire army gasped, a bird's teaching a whole kingdom about Tawheed. Suleiman's eyes narrowed, not in anger but in shock and curiosity. The bird continued, "I fear for them, my lord, I fear they do not know the truth." And just as the bird prepared to reveal more, a strong wind swept across the valley, shaking the trees and silencing everyone. Something urgent, something dangerous was coming next. Now let us go back to how everything started. Hudhud was a small bird with bright eyes and quick wings. While other birds played in the sky, Hudhud often flew alone, thinking deeply. It loved exploring hidden places, watching different peoples, and listening to their prayers. It understood the greatness of Allah in everything, the way rivers flowed, the way leaves moved, the way the clouds followed their path in the sky. In the kingdom of Prophet Suleiman, peace and order ruled. Every creature had a job. Even the birds were trusted messengers, honored in the army. Hudhud's special duty was to search for water during long journeys. It could smell water from far away, even underground. One morning, while the sun rose softly, Prophet Suleiman prepared his massive army for travel. Thousands marched in long lines, birds flew overhead, making shade with their wings. But when Suleiman looked around, he did not see Hudhud at his usual place. "Where is Hudhud?" he asked. The birds shook their heads, no one knew. Suleiman's voice became firm. "If Hudhud has left without permission, he will face a serious consequence unless he brings a clear and strong reason." The whole army whispered nervously, "Hudhud missing," that had never happened before. Meanwhile, far from the camp, Hudhud had flown into a strange land. It was beautiful, filled with gardens, shining water canals, and tall buildings. Hudhud had never seen anything like it. Curious, it followed the sound of drums and saw a great gathering of people. They were bowing, hundreds of them, all facing the rising sun. At the center of the gathering sat a queen on a throne of gold. Her name was Bilqis, the queen of Sheba. She was wise and powerful, but Hudhud's heart tightened. These people, including their queen, were prostrating to the sun instead of Allah. Hudhud perched on a branch, shocked. How can they not know that Allah made the sun itself? How can they worship something that rises and sets like everything else? For the first time in its life, the little bird felt a fire of responsibility in its chest. It knew it had to return to Prophet Suleiman immediately. This was not small news, this was something that could change nations. Hudhud rushed back, beating its wings as fast as it could, fear mixed with purpose. It knew Suleiman might punish it for leaving without permission, but Tawheed was more important. Teaching people about the oneness of Allah was more important than its own safety. By the time Hudhud reached the valley where the army waited, the sky had grown hot and the shadows were short. The soldiers stepped back as Hudhud landed shakily before the prophet. "I was absent," the bird said, chest rising and falling, "but I was not lazy or careless. My lord, I bring knowledge you do not yet have." The whole army held its breath. "What knowledge?" Prophet Suleiman asked with powerful calmness. Hudhud opened its wings, preparing to speak, when suddenly the ground beneath them trembled violently, as if something massive was approaching the valley at great speed. The ground shook so hard that even the trees trembled. Birds flew up in fright. Soldiers tightened their ranks. Prophet Suleiman raised his hand, signaling everyone to stay calm. Hudhud froze, its small heart beating fast. What was coming? What had it accidentally led them into? A deep rumbling sound spread across the valley. At first it was like thunder, then like a stampede, then like thousands of drums beating at once. The jinn soldiers looked at each other with sharp, alert eyes. They could sense things humans and animals could not. Suddenly, from behind a ridge, a massive cloud of dust began to rise. The army gripped their weapons. But then, before anything came into view, the shaking stopped, the dust slowly faded, the valley grew quiet again, too quiet. Prophet Suleiman lowered his hand. "Hudhud," he said softly but firmly, "tell me what you discovered." The little bird bowed its head and began to speak. "My lord, I flew far away and came across a great kingdom, a kingdom ruled by a wise and powerful queen Bilqis, but her people, they worship the sun, they bow to it every morning. They do not know the truth of Allah, the Lord of all creation. The jinn murmured in surprise. The human soldiers exchanged worried looks. A whole nation worshipping the sun? Such a thing spread darkness in the world, even if the people thought they were doing good. Hudhud continued, "Her throne is magnificent, my lord, her land is rich, but their hearts are empty of Tawheed." Prophet Sulayman looked at the bird with deep, thoughtful eyes. "Are you certain of what you saw?" Hudhud lifted its head boldly. "I am certain." A moment passed, the wind blew lightly across the valley. Then Sulayman nodded. "Very well, you have brought the truth, and now we must act with wisdom." Hudhud let out a breath of relief, its tiny wings relaxing. Prophet Sulayman called one of his scribes. "Prepare a letter for the Queen of Sheba," he ordered, "a letter calling her to believe in Allah alone." The scribe unrolled a piece of parchment, dipped his pen, and waited. Sulayman spoke clearly, "In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most kind, do not be proud, come to me in peace and submission." Simple, powerful, and full of truth. Hudhud was chosen to deliver the letter. Its heart fluttered with both pride and fear. It had never carried a message this important, one that could change the fate of an entire nation. Before leaving, Prophet Sulayman gently placed his hand near the bird. "Do not be afraid, Hudhud, Allah sees every sincere effort." Hudhud nodded, wings trembling, and then took off into the sky. As it flew, the world below changed from green valleys to tall mountains to wide deserts. Hudhud pushed itself, refusing to slow down. It remembered the people of Sheba bowing to the sun. It remembered the feeling in its chest, the urge to defend Tawheed. After a long journey, Hudhud finally reached the kingdom of Sheba. The people were busy preparing for another sunrise ceremony. Drums boomed, trumpets sounded. Hudhud knew it had to be fast. It swooped down, dropped the letter gently onto the queen's lap, and flew to a high pillar to watch. Queen Bilqis looked confused. She opened the letter. Her eyes widened. She read it again and again. Her hands began to shake slightly. "This message," she whispered, "is not from a normal king." Her advisors gathered around her, worried. "What does it say, my queen?" they asked. Bilqis stood up slowly, her face serious. "It says," she announced, "do not be proud, come to me in peace and submission." Her advisors gasped, some grew angry, some grew scared, some whispered about war. But before anyone could say more, a loud blast echoed across the palace, so loud that the pillars shook. Something powerful had just arrived outside the royal gates. The blast outside the palace gates thundered through the entire kingdom. Servants dropped their trays, guards grabbed their spears, ministers stumbled back in fear. Even Queen Bilqis froze where she stood, her eyes widening as dust fell from the tall ceiling. "What was that?" one advisor shouted. Another rushed to the balcony and looked down. His face went pale. "My queen, something enormous is outside the gates." Bilqis gathered her robe and walked toward the balcony with calm dignity, though her heart beat hard inside her chest. When she stepped out, the sight below almost made her gasp. A huge, swirling whirlwind was forming at the entrance of the palace. The wind whipped through the garden, tearing leaves from the trees and shaking the golden pillars, but this was not a normal storm. No clouds, no lightning, no rain. It was a jinn messenger from Prophet Sulayman. Bilqis gripped the balcony railing, steadying herself. Her people had heard stories, whispers that Sulayman had power over jinn, animals, and even the wind itself. If those stories were true, then this letter was more serious than any message she had ever received. Down below, the spinning form of the jinn slowly took shape, tall, powerful, glowing with strange light. The guards at the gate stepped back in terror. None dared draw their weapons. Then the jinn's voice boomed like rolling thunder. "I come with a warning for the Queen of Sheba. Do not resist the command of Prophet Sulayman. His message is from Allah the Most High." The entire city heard his voice echoing across the roofs, bouncing through the halls, shaking the hearts of every man, woman, and child. Bilqis placed a hand on her chest and whispered to herself, "This is no ordinary king, this is a prophet." But her advisors were not as calm. "My queen, this is an insult, he threatens us. We should prepare for war." "No," another advisor shouted. "Did you not see that creature? What army can fight against beings like that?" Arguments erupted all around her. shouting, pointing, fear mixing with anger. Bilqis raised her hand, silence fell. "We cannot fight what we do not understand," she said quietly. "This king, this prophet Suleiman controls beings we have never seen. If he wished to destroy us, he would not send a letter, he would send an army." Her words made the room fall even quieter. She continued, "I will not rush into war. We will first test his intentions. We will send him gifts, great treasures from our land. If he accepts them, he seeks power. But if he rejects them, then he seeks something else." Her advisors nodded slowly. It was a wise plan. Sheba was rich, its gifts could calm the heart of any king. But there was one creature in the palace who was not interested in gold or jewels. Hudhud. It perched high on a pillar, watching everything with its bright eyes. It had delivered the letter and intended to leave, but when the jinn arrived, Hudhud stayed hidden to see what happened, and what it saw worried it deeply. "They think they can distract a prophet of Allah with treasures," the little bird whispered. "They do not understand at all." Now Hudhud knew it must fly back and inform Prophet Suleiman before the queen's gifts reached him. It spread its wings, but just before it could take off, the palace doors burst open again. Guards rushed in panicked. "My queen, the caravans we prepared, the gold, the jewels, the precious stones." "Yes," she asked sharply. "They're gone." The room exploded with gasps. "Gone how?" "They vanished, my queen, all of them gone into thin air." Even Queen Bilqis could not hide her shock. In Hudhud, its tiny heart pounded. This was not the work of her own people. This was not magic from Sheba. Something or someone had taken the gifts before they could even be sent. And Hudhud knew exactly who had the power to do that. It lifted its wings slowly, trembling, as the entire palace stared in fear and confusion. Something greater than anyone expected had just begun. The disappearance of the treasures spread through the palace like wildfire. Ministers whispered in panic. Guards searched every hallway, every room, every hidden chamber, yet nothing was found. The golden boxes, the jewels, the precious stones, the rare perfumes, all gone, vanished. Queen Bilqis stood in the middle of the throne room, her calmness slowly cracking. Her people were watching her, desperate for answers, but she had none. "How could this happen?" one advisor cried. "No one entered or left the palace," another shouted. "Is this sorcery?" a third whispered fearfully. Bilqis raised a hand, trying to steady her voice. "Search again, every corner, every passage." But even as she said it, doubt filled her heart. This was not theft, this was a message. Hudhud watched from the top of a tall column, its small eyes scanning the room. It knew exactly what had happened. A jinn had taken the treasures. Not to keep them, but to show the queen how powerless her wealth was in front of a prophet of Allah. The little bird knew time was running out. Prophet Suleiman must hear of this quickly. So Hudhud flew silently out of the palace, unseen by the frightened guards, and headed back into the bright morning sky. Far away, in the valley where Suleiman's army rested, something unusual was happening. The jinn were standing in a wide circle, arguing loudly. The humans were tense. The wind carried whispers of strange events, and Suleiman sat upon his grand seat, quietly waiting, because he already knew the queen had tried to send gifts. Now he was waiting for Hudhud to return with details. Suddenly, F-Whip, the small bird, burst through the air and landed before the prophet, wings shaking with exhaustion. Hudhud bowed. "My lord, the queen prepared great treasures to test you, but before her people could send them, they disappeared," Suleiman finished calmly. Hudhud looked up in shock. You knew." Suleiman nodded gently. "I sent a jinn to remove them. She must understand that the gifts of this world mean nothing to Allah." Hudhud lowered its head in awe. Every time it thought it understood the wisdom of Allah and his prophets, something greater happened. Suleiman rose to his feet, and immediately the entire army grew silent. "This queen has intelligence," he said. "She does not rush into battle. She seeks truth even if she does not yet recognize it, so we will show her a sign she cannot deny." The jinn bowed, the humans stood straighter, the animals perked up. Hudhud felt its wings tingle. "A sign, what kind?" Suleiman looked at the jinn chiefs. "Which of you can bring me the throne of the Queen of Sheba before she arrives here?" Gasps echoed across the valley. "Bring her throne from a distant kingdom before she even arrives." One mighty jinn stepped forward, his voice like rolling thunder. I can bring it to you before you rise from your seat. But before Suleiman could answer, another voice spoke. A soft voice. A calm voice. A voice filled with the light of knowledge. I can bring it to you faster than that, said a wise servant who had deep understanding of the Book of Allah. I can bring it before your eye blinks. Hudhud's feathers stood straight. Before his eye blinks. That was impossible, wasn't it? Suleiman nodded. Do it. There was no thunder. No explosion. No wind. Just a heartbeat of silence. Then, whom. A powerful burst of light filled the valley, the ground shook, the soldiers shielded their faces, Hudhud hid under its wings. When the light faded, something enormous stood in front of Suleiman's throne. Golden. Magnificent. Impossible. The Queen of Sheba's throne. The entire army gasped, even the jinn froze. Hudhud stared beak open, heart racing. This was a miracle, a sign no human queen could ignore, a throne carried across nations in less than a blink. And just as the shock settled into the hearts of every creature present, a loud horn sounded from the edge of the valley. The soldiers turned. A caravan was approaching. Huge, decorated, moving fast. Queen Bilqis was arriving. And she had no idea her throne was already waiting for her. The wind carried the sound of the approaching caravan, horses, camels, soldiers, and elegant riders, all moving with purpose toward Prophet Suleiman's valley. Dust rolled behind them like a long curtain shimmering under the sun. Hudhud hopped nervously from one foot to the other. She's coming and she doesn't know what awaits her. Prophet Suleiman stood calmly, watching the caravan draw nearer. His army, humans, jinn, and animals formed disciplined rows, waiting for the queen who had traveled far from her land in search of truth. As the caravan reached the edge of the valley, Queen Bilqis stepped down from her carriage. She wore a rich cloak of blue and her crown sparkled like morning light, but her expression was thoughtful, not proud. She looked around at the armies unlike any she had ever seen, at the jinn who glowed with strange light, at the birds perched in perfect formation in the sky. This was no ordinary king. This was no ordinary place. Queen Bilqis approached slowly, her heart fighting between fear and awe. She bowed politely. I come in peace. Suleiman nodded gently. Peace be upon you, Queen of Sheba. But before anything else, he gave a quiet signal. And the moment she looked beyond him, she froze. Her breath caught. Her eyes widened. Her steps faltered. There, standing behind Prophet Suleiman, was her throne. Her throne. The very one she had left locked and guarded in her palace. Bilqis walked toward it slowly, her fingers trembling as she touched its golden edge. It was real, every carving, every jewel, every detail. How is this possible? She whispered. Hudhud puffed out its chest with pride. This was the moment a whole kingdom would see the truth about Allah. Suleiman spoke softly. This is from the power of your Lord, not mine. Allah brings what he wills. He shows signs to those who seek guidance. The queen swallowed hard, unable to speak for a moment. Her mind raced. Her palace had been protected by guards, by walls, by distance. No king could steal a throne so large, no army could move it so fast. Only a miracle could do this. And miracles come only from the one true God. Finally she looked up, eyes clear and humbled. My lord, this is not the work of a human king. This is a sign that I have been worshipping the wrong thing. She stepped back, tears gathering in her eyes. We bowed to the sun because we thought it gave us light, life, and warmth, but now I see the sun is only a creation. It is nothing without its creator. The valley grew silent, even the jinn bowed their heads. Bilqis raised her hands in surrender, not to Suleiman but to Allah. I submit myself to Allah, the Lord of all worlds. Hudhud nearly chirped out loud with joy. The bird fluttered into the air, circling in excitement. A queen, a whole kingdom saved from worshipping the sun, all because one small bird carried a message of Tawheed. Suleiman smiled, a smile filled with gratitude. You have chosen the path of truth, Queen Bilqis, and Allah guides those who seek guidance with a sincere heart. The queen nodded, her heart peaceful for the first time in her life. And high above them, Hudhud soared proudly into the sky, knowing its tiny wings had played a part in something huge, proof that no creature is too small to defend the truth. The lesson lived on. Never underestimate the power of Tawheed or the courage of even the smallest believer who stands up for it.